I'm Valerie McGilvery, and you're listening to part 3 of my talk about pretexting. You'll find my updated comments on this talk at the end of this video. You'll also find updated links in the description below. I wrote, enticing someone to go to a website can seem like a long shot, especially if you're using a sweepstakes entry form pretext. Okay, so first of all, if you're going to put out a sweepstakes pretext, a lot of people who are stay-at-home moms, if you're trying to entice them to do something like that, if it's a sweepstakes, you have to actually hold a sweepstakes. Federal law actually says there has to be a winner if there's an entry. You have to actually be giving something away. So another pretext that I used to do, and actually the website is still up, I never look at it, I never mess with it, and you can tell by looking at it that I don't mess with it. And it's called samplemob.com, and that's sample as in I'm going to give you a sample of my cooking, whatever, or they give you samples at the grocery store, and mob as in the mob, like the mafia mob. So samplemob.com, and I put up that I was giving free samples of nail polish and some other Plexus thing, and I went into a couple of the groups in the area that I needed to use this in. Okay, so which is Porter, Texas, and a lot of people in Porter rent trailers or small houses that are all bills paid. So they don't have utilities in their name. They don't do much of anything in their name. Probably have bad credit and skipped out on a bunch of different utilities in the past. So they get these places, these trailers and whatnot, and they're very difficult. You know, it's just like, oh my God, what do I do? you have no resource. So I thought, well, let me try this. So I put up this website to give away free samples, and went into all the groups in Porter, New Caney, and in that area, and said, oh, I just want to tell you I got some nail polish from this website. It's pretty cool. And then so a lot of people started sharing the link, and I had people signing up to get free samples from like Arizona the next day. You know, people really shared the crap out of it, and I was surprised. And that's just another thing that shows you the power of social media. And so so I went to and got a clearance box of a bunch of nail polish. And I said, well, let's do this. All the people who were younger, I wanted to actually mail them nail polish so that they would know that it's authentic and they would share it more. And that's exactly what happened. So I dropped that little project a few years ago because I got disinterested, perhaps, but you know, if you're going to do it, you have to do it legally, and you have to make sure that you put up the right language, and it's first come, first serve, so that they understand they can sign up, but they may not necessarily get the item that they want. So, but in any case, you know, marketing, that's marketing data, and that's the data that all these other big databases buy from smaller companies like that. And you know, I may have like 10,000 entries in there, and most of it's historical because I don't promote that anymore, and I don't even know if anybody goes there to sign up. But if you want to do something like that, that's how you would do it. But you need to make sure that you have stock of something to sell. I mean, to give away, and that you actually provide something. So in Texas, there's a law that says you cannot call someone to tell them that there's a recall on their vehicle and that you'll give their vehicle a tow to the dealership to do the recall work and then repossess it. Specifically, there is a law that makes that a crime. And I talked to one of my deputy friends about it, and he said, you know, you really aren't, because the debtor is perceived or is classified as in being in violation of hindering a secured creditor. And I know a lot of things come in between actually having that law enforced on a debtor versus just talking about it and knowing about it. But I just wanted to mention that because so many repossessors are are getting into other groups for PIs and whatnot, and there's nobody saying you can't do this, and I don't want you to do it because it's going to cost you, and I don't want to see you fail, and I don't want to see you be in trouble. I don't want to see your face in the news. We should all be that quiet, silent snake in the grass waiting for the right moment to strike, regardless of what you're doing. If you're serving papers, or if you're working on an investigation and you need to get a certain type of thing on video, cheating spouse or what have you, you know, blowing your cover or making contact is a bad thing. So pretexting in the GLB. So I actually have a friend who I consider to be an expert in the GLB, and since I don't know if Ron Brown is still in here or not, he would be also. But the GLB prohibits pretexting to get financial information from any company, especially financial institutions. Now, there's a video going around, well, that I have access to, that shows someone actually hacking into a bank account. Actually, I don't know if he actually gains access, but he definitely uses some tools to confirm that there's a bank account open. And I have a problem with that, of course. Even somebody tried to hack into my bank account last week, and I had to put a fraud lock on my own bank account and lock down all of my accounts and even my credit cards, because I realized that it's very possible that the person who had that video going around could have done that, because you know, because I'm me and I just I'm a target, I guess. So but anyway, so no pretexting banks, no pretexting. Oh, and that's the thing. When I talked about Harvey Cox and he said to mail a check, that actually would be a violation of the GLB. That's a pretext. You don't legitimately owe somebody money, and you're not just going to up and say, oh, I think I'm going to give this person a $50 check, and it would need to be something substantial so they'd want to cash it, you know, if an unknown check came about. So, oh, here's a good one. So this is interesting. A lot of companies will give away Visa gift cards. So many years ago, there was a website that provided tools for private investigators and skip tracers. And one of the things that they had back then was phone cards, where you would just buy a phone card and mail it to somebody as a thank you for being a good customer or whatever. And if they used it, you could see all of the toll bills. That's pretty obsolete. But now there are some gift cards that you can get where you can see history of the charges, because all you need to log on to the account is the credit card number, the gift card number, and the PIN number that's on the back. That's what you need. So I saw that American Express did allow, like, you could buy 10 or more cards and have them customized to your company logo or your pretext logo. And then all of a sudden, American Express started forcing you to buy like 1,000 of them. And I know none of us would ever do that. We would never buy 1,000 gift cards with $25 on them each. Maybe a huge law firm or a gigantic or high volume investigative agency could afford to invest that and utilize it. But particularly the gift cards are interesting because you can see where they spend the money. So you need to put enough bait money on there so that they make several purchases. And of course, if they make a purchase online, you don't really have an opportunity to get their locale and see, you know, what region or where they spend their money. Or, you know, people usually get gas right around the corner, and that's where this idea comes from, or the hope that they would just go buy some gas and a cup of coffee and you know, grab a newspaper. I guess newspapers are obsolete now too, huh? Paper newspapers anyway. You can still get gift cards, and they still work that way. I have yet to see a gift card actually have an option to use a password. So, you know, you would, if you choose to do that, like vanilla gift cards or buy a gift card from the United States Postal Service, which is usually where I go get mine, they would load the card there, and then those cards, like the American Express gift card, there's no way to personalize it at all. It doesn't exist. So it's always going to be the card number and then the PIN number, the 4 digits on the front of the card. And the only one thing that's not so great is it shows where the card was loaded. It'll say USPS. So if you were going to pretext as a bigger business, you would probably want to look for one that actually sold that type of card, and make sure that it doesn't have a password. I mean, it doesn't give them an option to use a password. And then you know, execute delivery. You have to figure out how to get it to that person. You know, for me, I mailed a couple to Mom and Grandma's house, but I have no way of knowing that Mom and Grandma didn't use the card. But, you know, my client wanted to try, and so and try they did. I'm going to say out of mailing probably a 20 total cards, that 5 of them I got good information from. And so 5 out of 20, I think that's good to try. I mean, literally, if the client's paying for it, then there's no loss on you. It's just another way to gather information. I'll tell you this. Once I got a phone call from a private investigator who was desperately trying to figure out how to get access to a child where his client believed that he was the father of, and the mother was a prostitute. And so, you know, I sat and thought for a minute, what do moms need the most? For free. Babysitting. So I told him maybe this would work. Go to vistaprint.com. You can create a postcard and you can customize it, you know, use a local number, you know, and make sure that it has call on the phone number that's the local number, you know, get a cell phone. And then establish an identity as a babysitter. And then if she calls you, make sure that the actual babysitter is certified in CPR and whatnot, if this actually follows, you know, actually works. And so, so the idea, of course, was to mail out cards to everyone in the building, just the building, or leave notes on the doors. But vistaprint.com, you can actually mail out 1 or 2 cards at a time, postcards that look authentic, like mass pre-printed cards, and for dirt cheap. And you can still use all the same lingo that you would on a regular mail piece, which would be, you know, a return address, an address service requested, or not. If it's not necessary, you don't have to do that, or put any return address at all, and then mail them out. And I told them, you're going to have to mail them to the whole building so she doesn't feel singled out, because it has to be authentic, and you need to make sure she's in a place where she says to her neighbor, hey, so did you see this free babysitting postcard I got? Do you know who this chick is? Is she good? She trustworthy? And then he told me that the grandmother mostly babysits the baby, and that she's gone all the time, and that they're having a difficult time figuring out what garbage in the main dumpster actually belongs to that building, or that a family, an apartment in that building. And so that would be the thing that's the only thing that I could think of that was a real resource, that where you would pull together a cooperation of a couple of different people to get access to get hair follicles, hair from the child, to see if he was indeed the biological father. In the past, I haven't used Vistaprint for big projects because they can be kind of pricey. And but Vistaprint does put together something for you that's really good looking, but you go through and make sure that you remove any branding that says Vistaprint, because they do throw that on there. And I noticed that other people who sent me postcards for advertising, Vistaprint thing, and I went, oh, Vistaprint, and threw it in the garbage. Not that it would matter, but anyway. So one truism about pretexting is if at first you present some scenario to a subject or a target and it doesn't work, it has to be unemotional for you. You can't be like all upset or be aggressive towards the subject because they decided not to take advantage of your offer. You just have to regroup and start over again. Regroup and say, okay, that didn't work. Next. And I want to say, you only have one voice. If you actually get somebody on the phone and you talk to them, you have one voice. You'll never be able to talk to them as any other person ever again. You can only be you. You would have to find someone else to fulfill the pretext or make contact with that person. The voice changers, okay, this is a good story. Oh, I hadn't thought about this in a long time. So there was a Hispanic female skip tracer who harassed another PI, and the PI is Vicky Saito, and Vicky's a good friend. So Vicky can tell you the story, but I'm going to tell you what I know. So this woman's name is Maria, and she's not really around anymore. She blew through our industry in a hurricane torrent, and then exited stage left after she got into it with some other people. But she actually used the voice changer on a spoof call to Vicky. And I had talked to Maria for years. You know, she was different, but she was competitive with the other females. I did not position myself to be her competitor. I was like, okay, I just don't want to suffer her wrath because she's pretty extreme. So Vicky calls me one night and says, hey, Val, this person left this weird message, and it's a guy. And I thought, you need to let me listen to that. And so I listened to it, and it was that woman. I want to point out that her idiolect and her accent did not get lost in the voice change. So she used a voice change, or she picked the voice of a man, but her idiolect and her accent and the way she spoke the words, I'm like, dude, that's Maria. That's her. But yeah, so if you use a voice changer, you have to be conscientious about how you say words. If you're like me and you say, how y'all doing, or how you doing, you have to make sure that you follow a personal script and guide for how you're going to pronounce words and what words you choose, because they cannot be the same. That because of that phone call, that message she left Vicky, that let me know. That is a good detail to know. So tell all your friends. Maria is somebody who also did bank searches. And I'm going to go back to banking now that I've had this thought. Maria did bank searches for another big company that I think just closed down. And I told her, I don't need to find bank accounts most of the time. And back then, that was not what I did. But because we had just lost e-funds in our databases, I knew that new addresses would come from banking data. So I told her, okay, so would you teach me how you do your bank searches? She said no. So she hauled around, and she said, oh, I'll think about it. And then I told her, okay, I'll pay you $2,000 cash. That's all I got right now. And I'll give it to you in writing that I'll never write about it. I'll never write about it, and I'll never tell anybody at all what you teach me. She was going to go for it. She was going to go for it. And then she changed her mind. But she did say one thing. She told me that she starts with check systems. So I did some searching. I actually called Check Systems and said, I need to talk to your merchant department. And nobody would give me that department. They're like, we don't do that. That's not what we do. And then I had to do more research and more reading, and I finally found it. I found the thing that she does. So I finally found the information, and it was a consumer reporting. As a matter of fact, I think the web domain name was consumerdebit.com. and that domain forwards to another place to obtain your own report on your bank or banking information that check systems collects. So they actually get information from banks where when you apply for a bank or apply to open a new account, it doesn't maintain that an account is actually open. So, and not everybody subscribes to them. So it's not accurate information straight across the board. But so I thought, all right, that's it. So I ordered mine. And then I talked to a couple of people to try to figure out how would this be the thing that she does. And I came up with a conclusion, and I'm probably correct on the conclusion. So first of all, when I got my report, or you just order it online. You don't have to know any special information about the person that you're doing it for, but you have to attest that you have a legal right to obtain that data. And so on my report, it showed every bank account that I ever opened and the date that I opened it. And like, I have one checking account that went into overdraft that I never paid. Sorry, it's still open. It's still, I mean, I'm still in overdraft at that bank account. But in any case, I thought this history is probably what she's looking at. She's looking for banks who have inquired to make sure that they are, to find leads to go verify if a bank account is open with that branch. So I thought, well, how the hell does she get the reports? Because they don't email them; they mass print them every day and put them in envelopes in a folding machine, in a stuffing machine, and they go into the mail. So no human eyes touch, and go there on each report. And so she probably has a P.O. box, or she uses another box or address where like a lot of different people have lived there. She could use an apartment address. Excuse me. I would say that a person who does this should be cautious of using their own IP address and having several sent to the same address for unrelated people. I think that would get someone busted for doing it. And but alas, I'm pretty sure that that's what she did to get banking information. And then I found out that the guy who hired her to do them for his company actually gave her pretext to use whenever she gets a lead on a bank account. So there is a specific line of pretexts that work on a bank, but I don't know what they are. Nobody's ever told me, and it's not really anything I need to know because, like I said, my databases are so great and I've got good information. I don't need to do that. But that's the gist of it. So I would say that going back to the telephone voice changer thing, I would say that you definitely need to be aware of the idiolect, and mirroring comes into play whenever you're talking to somebody who's from the north and you're a southerner like me. If you have the knack to adapt their accent, which I do, see, some people, like my mom will talk to somebody from East Texas, and then all of a sudden she's talking like them, and I'm like, Mom, you were raised in the city of Houston, and you're not supposed to have an accent. Stop that. You sound like you're from the boonies, like, the hills in Tennessee. And we'd all laugh together, and she hated that, but she did. She would inherit their accent. Salesmen do it to relate to the person they're trying to sell to. If you're talking to debtors all day long on the phone, you'll do it because you want the debtor to like you and communicate with you on a positive note and accomplish something, which would be getting a vehicle surrendered. If you're a process server and you're trying to get someone to meet you, you'll do it because you need to get those papers served. And so that's it, idiolect. And you can read about the sales tactic mirroring. And if you're an investigator who has to lean on pretexting, and and you don't already know, all of the sales books that, I mean, the books that teach people how to be better salesmen, those are the books that I read when I was younger, that I drew from to be able to execute good pretexts now. So, and a pretext is just like marketing. You're going to market your pretext company or your pretext identity, regardless of what it is. So people need, and I say this all the time, people need to see it, read it, hear it 8 times in order for them to think about you when the need arises. So you'll want to send a couple of different postcards or find other ways to target them in so that, or put your information out there. In Skip Trace Secrets, I wrote, whenever you're creating your pretext company, you'll want to have a website. You'll want to make sure that you're in all of the free phone number sites like Yelp, Manta, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others. Merchant Circle was one back in the day. You could take your phone number and establish it in all of these different phone number places where you report spam calls online. I happen to own the dirtyphonebook.com. That's one place where people actually report collection calls and spam phone numbers. And then there's 800 Notes and a few others. And then, if you were an authentic business, people are going to complain about you. So you could actually go to consumerreports.com or ripoffreport.com and create some dirt on your company and then respond from a different account to say, yes, that's me. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I want to work it out. And then just be nice and be all like, oh, yeah, because things happen. People get irked and bad service happens. So this authentic, it gives your pretext company authenticity. And then, establishing that phone number, of course, is important, like I said before, because it would be the phone number that you called them from. And people are going to look up their numbers, or they have apps on their phone that instantly identify a number. So if you write that you're a grocery store or a gas station or, I don't know, a lawn service, you're trying to sell lawn service, you're establishing something, and you want to call them on the phone and tell them that you want to cut their yard 3 times for free so that they can see how good your company is. And they'll say, sure, come cut my yard 3 times for free. And then, whenever you go there with a lawnmower in the back of your trailer, knock on the door and serve them and drive away. You've done your job. You got them to answer the door. I mean, I've even told somebody, listen, if it's not going to work for you, just cut their freaking yard. You're getting paid $400 for rush service. Show up with a lawnmower, zip their front yard down, knock on the door to get them to sign something, and leave. Serve them and leave. So as long as their front yard's not real big. I'm saying, as a suggestion. You may not agree with that entirely, but I have here a list. I just opened the page to the list. Actually, the article is, or the section of the book is called SEO Your Pretext. Thank you for listening to my third and final part of my talk on pretexting. Vistaprint mails directly to your list for you. There's no minimum and there's no cap. Also, to log in to view transactions on a Visa gift card, you just need the 3-digit code from the back of the card or the 4 digits from the front.